Next policy is the recommended draft policy 2016-2, change timeframes for IPv4 requests to 24 months. I'll give the staff introduction to the policy, and this was proposed in May 2016. The A.C. Shepherds, Tina Morris, and Scott Librand. It has not been presented at a PPM or PPC. It is recommended for adoption. It was recommended in September 2016. Text is in the discussion guide and online. Policy language would change the needs assessment time horizon considered for requests to be added to the wait list, and it would change that from 3 months to 24 months. For end user organizations, it would change the need assessment from 12 months to 24 months. All requests for IPv4 address space destined for the waiting list for unmet requests would consider the 24-month needs of the requesting organization. All documentation related to the request process on the ARIN public website and in outreach that describe the 3-month, 12-month, and 24 would require updating. This would include various guides, procedures, and documentation, training materials. The ARIN online IPv4 request screen would need updated accordingly to reflect the 24-month interval. It could be implemented as written. It does not create a material legal issue. The policy would have a moderate resource impact to implement. It's estimated to take up to 6 months to implement following the ratification of these policy changes because of the extensive number of places that get touched with the time frame. And that includes development work and QA work for the online request screens, website outreach material, trade decks, and print publications. And now I will turn it over to the AC, and Tina Morris will come up and give the presentation.
Hello. Ready? Okay. Essentially, this is another simplification policy, simplification of the NRPM as well as process. Currently, when somebody comes in to request space, as they still do, not everybody realizes that V4 has run out, they request a 3-month supply of addresses. When they're offered to go to the waiting list, they qualify for the 3-month supply for the waiting list. However, if they choose to go to the transfer market, they then have to reapply for a 24-month. What this does is simplify that to standardize everything to 24-month. A list of, as John went through, all the sections of the NRPM that will be updated, and basically all references to 3 months will be removed. Let's see, legal and staff, it's just updating of resources and retraining on process. No real concerns here. One thing that came up, and one of the first things that I thought of when I looked at the policy was the waiting list that exists today. Everybody that qualified for 3 months already and is at the at the top of the waiting list, would they then be able to requalify for 24 months? If space came back, they could take it all, kind of thing. And so we added this clarification of intent. Anybody that wants to requalify for 24 months goes to the bottom of the list. And the current people in the waiting list can requalify, but not for more than they originally approved. So this will not affect anybody's status at the top of the waiting list. It will only apply to people that are way down below, which I think we're well over 300-400 people at this time. So there'll be relatively no impact to that. I guess the only other risk to consider is if somebody gave back a very large chunk of space, how this would affect how that was issued, but that is unlikely. And so just up for discussion, how do you feel about it? Does it seem like a good change to everybody? Is there support?
Sorry.
No.
Thank you, Thunder. Okay, last policy before lunch, so take your time. It's just you and between you and lunch at this point, so. Okay, that didn't really mean to just have no discussion. So let's, we do have some time allocated here. Please approach a microphone or start typing. Not that I don't see you, but I just, center microphone.
Beautiful.
Can't have that keep going, so, you know.
Owen DeLong, Akamai, ARIN AC. I support the policy as written. I think I had something to do with the writing of the policy. I think it is a useful simplification. I don't think it presents any meaningful risk. I think it helps bring back in line and reduce some of the discrepancies between NRPM and NRP4 and NRPM8 that have evolved as a result of some of the cobbling we've done on rearranging deck chairs in V4 transfer policy. And hopefully we'll have some community support as well.
Thank you. Now left microphone.
Kevin Bloomberg, The Wire, and RONC, and I am trying to go slow so other people
I
can go first.
appreciated that. I did notice that.
I oppose the policy as written. Unmet requests right now have, just guesstimating, a 10 to 20 year timeline to full. Whatever it is a long time, infinitesimal time out in the future. The benefit of leaving things at 3 months is letting people know that they can get a very small block, which is fair if it's going to take so long to get, but really that there's nothing there. I would far rather that staff update their checkbox that says, I'm looking to do an unmet request for 3 months, and by the way, I'd also like to do my 24-month at the same time, rather than radically changing policy. But my bigger concern is this. This is not simplifying. This is actually going back, reordering Section 4 again to make everything 24 months to deal with the fact that Section 4 is just such a mess. I would rather us extricate and leave Section 4, which we're dealing with elsewhere, as its own standalone and not keep changing Section 4. Thank you.
Thank you. Rear microphone.
David Farmer, University of Minnesota, ARIN-AC. I support the policy as written, although Kevin's has some valid concerns over there. Excuse me.
Bless you.
I think it's something that we missed a while when we first created the waiting list. The waiting list's purpose in ARIN policy isn't necessarily to provide resources to entities. Its primary purpose is to ensure that resources aren't trapped in ARIN when they come back. The ARIN has a fair and useful way to get resources out to community, whatever that trickle of resources is. It's not intended to actually necessarily meet anyone's, no one should be under the misconception that it's going to meet their needs in the long term. There's no way to do that in the long term. And then I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you, David. If you would like to comment on this proposal, please approach microphone forthwith. We'll have to close the microphone soon. Center microphone.
Just one relevant question.
Name, please. Sorry.
I'm Ike Nicebug, AC candidate.
Okay.
Question: are there any statistics on the frequency of basically how often 3 months versus 24-month waiting period have been triggered in the last couple of years? Like, how will this change statistically impact?
I forgot about you there. I apologize. John, did you want to get a few points in?
Last time I checked, the wait list had over 300, we're approaching 400 entries on it. And so far we've removed 6 from the front. Those are 6 allocations based on the criteria that were in place, which is based on their immediate 3-month need. And so you've got a circumstance here where, and that was based on space coming from the IANA, which is going to be, we're going to be getting more, but we get less and less every time. It's the remnants in the system being allocated to the 5 RIRs. Under the current procedures, because of the way this is written, the people in the wait list on who are Q7 through 350, now 1 through 344, we're unlikely to get past probably the next 20 or 25 of them until such time, 5 to 10 years out, when organizations literally abandon IPv4 and say, I don't need the block, I'm giving it back to ARIN because I don't care. Depending on where you put that cliff function, that's when this policy will start having any effect in terms of issuance of space. Parties that are going on the wait list now are engaged in a coping strategy. They want to address space, and they're coming to the realization that there is none available via ARIN, via the free pool. It's not an effective way to get address space. So the policy actually isn't going to have an effect on how ARIN issues address space, or if it does, it won't for 10 to 15 years from now. It's simply a question of what work we ask people to do when they go to the wait list, which is not going to be productive.
Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you. Rear microphone.
Stacy Hughes, speaking for myself. If indeed moving this policy forward would result in the merging of the 3 policies for the best policy, as it says on the website, I support it.
Thank you, Stacy. Okay, we're going to close the microphones after our next speaker. If there's no, we do have some remotes queued up, so we'll close them after our next speaker. So please approach a mic or start typing, and then we'll clear out the queues here. Front microphone.
Owen DeLong, Akamai Aaron AC. To speak specifically to the issue of what impact this policy has and why it's useful in spite of the fact that the waiting list is effectively infinite at this point, this isn't about, excuse me, this is not about making the waiting list easier to get on or giving larger chunks of space to people on the waiting list or any of that. Because I think everybody pretty much recognizes that we're never going to get to the bottom of that waiting list while it matters. What this is about is simplifying the policy so that people who are coming in and considering waiting on the waiting list while they try and figure out how to do a transfer or get their transfer organized or whatnot, have the ability to apply once instead of having to figure out, okay, do I qualify for a 3-month application or a 12-month application or a 24-month? We've got all these different time frames at this point in the NRPM, depending on whether you're an ISP or an end user, depending on whether you're going for a transfer or trying to get on the waiting list. And it just simplifies everything to have the same time horizon so that it's less confusing to anybody that is coming in and trying to sort all of this out. There's already enough confusion between the waiting list and transfers and whatnot without making all the time horizons different for no practical benefit as well.
Thank you. So last chance if you want to speak. I do see there's one more speaker over there as well now. But if you want to speak, approach a microphone in the next couple of seconds. Going. I don't know if he's going.
All right.
He's going. All right. Remote participation, please.
No, this is Scott Librand speaking for himself. Scott Librand, ARIN AC, deliver. This proposal basically means that any application made to ARIN serves as a pre-qualification for a transfer. Today, that is not the case. Today, you can make an application to ARIN that is completely useless. This would mean that all applications to ARIN can actually be useful. So given that simple fact, I support the proposal.
Thank you. And there are no remote participations? Okay. Last intervention, sir.
Alan Shen, ARIN AC candidate. Pretty much anything that increases consistency in the NRPM, I'm for. I just don't think that keeping it all different and keeping the 3-month in there really solves any problems.
So you're in support?
Yes,
Thank
as
you.
written.
As written. Thank you. All right. The microphones are now closed. No remote participation. Any comments from you, Tina?
No.
Okay. Thank you for the conversation. Thank you to Tina and AC for their work on this. All right, get your arms warmed up. One more, and then we have a lovely lunch. So with the counters in place, I would ask those that are in favor of ARIN 2016-2 that the AC continue to advance this policy, please raise your hand nice and high. Please keep it high. Thank you very much. You may lower it. Those that are opposed to the policy as written, please raise your hand nice and high. We have one. Nice and high. Thank you. You may lower it. So, as we wait for the results, I know it was Josh, but I'll do the serious public service announcement for a second. After lunch is the election procedures, and as chair of the board, I would just please encourage everybody to take some time. We have three great slates of candidates. They're going to be up to speak if they're here, and it's very important that you take the time to consider those candidates and vote. So that's my plug. John, did you have a plug as well there?
No, I was going to work on the banter you wanted me to work on. If you wanted to talk about like property market outside the U.S., that might be helpful.
I was thinking of bringing my book, A Practical Guide to Canadian Immigration, and with me, but and give it away as a door prize. But I decided against. On the matter of ARIN 2016-2, change timeframes for IPv4 requests to 24 months, we went up. 140 in the room and remote, by the way. In favor, 40. Against, 2. This input is being provided to the AC for their consideration. I will turn